A very warm welcome to everybody who stepped up to listen to us. I would like to welcome all of you to this FreeSpring Mental Wellness Summit 2022. This is Bishakha, your speaker for the evening. So today I will be talking about leading with empathy, the most underrated life skill for thriving and helping others game up. But before that, let me introduce you to who I am and what I do. So my name is Bishakha Jain. I work as the Director and Indian Ambassador for the Cyber Security Global Alliance. I am the Brand Ambassador and Advisor for the Women in Cloud Network. And I'm also the official ambassador for the International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day. I am an active cybersecurity evangelist and a public speaker and your speaker for the evening. So today we will be talking about empathy, which is a very necessary leadership skills, and how to lead with empathy and why it is underrated as a life skill for thriving and helping others game up. And why do I say helping others game up? Because that is what leaders are supposed to do, isn't it? Now, first of all, let's get into who is a leader. A very common question, isn't it? A leader is not the owner of the conglomerate. A leader is its custodian. A leader defends the people, and in turn, the people empowers the leader. It's a symbiotic relationship. This is the crux of a leader's role, to protect the people, to help them identify the passion and potentialities to enable them to thrive, and in the process, create more leaders. What does a leader signify? And who is a leader? According to me, each one of us is a leader because, if not anything else, it's our life that we all handle independently. We are independent contributors to our own lives. And this is growth. Growth for us, growth for people, and growth for the community. But the question is, what is leadership all about? Projecting intellectual horsepower underpins gravitas. A necessary leadership skill again, but there is more to this attribute than being the smartest person in the room. It's about signal that you not only have the depth and heft, but also the confidence and credibility to get your point across and create buy-in when the going gets rough. Because at the end of the day, we all are constantly selling. We sell our character, we sell our resumes, our potentialities, our passion, our skills to make a living. In fact, projecting confidence and grace under fire is the number one pick to identify what constitutes leadership. However, gravitas alone is not enough unless we are empathetic and authentic enough, unless we convince everyone that we care. Because, as rightly put by Theodore Roosevelt, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And empathy is the culmination of three virtues churned together into a cohesive whole, namely courage, compassion, and connection. Practicing courage, compassion, and connection in our daily lives is how we cultivate worthiness. The key word is practice. Mary Daly, a theologian, writes, courage is like habitus, a habit, a virtue. You get it by courageous act. Just like you learn swimming and you learn to swim by swimming, you learn courage by couraging. The same is true for compassion and connection. We invite compassion into our lives when we act compassionately towards ourselves and others. And we feel connected in our lives when we reach out and connect. Being trustworthy requires more than following a behavioral checklist. It demands getting right under the underlying attitudes, mindsets, outlooks, and ways of thinking right. Adopt them, and you will find the behavior come far more naturally and with less difficulty. In contrast, if you jump ahead to skills, tips, and tricks, you will be working the hard way. Just get the attitudes right, and actions will follow. So, now, how a little kindness goes a long way for the cohesive growth of people and essential tools to develop an empathy for leading organizational behavior is what I would like to discuss. Few of the things that I would like to highlight is how the outside principle works to act and think like a leader, and how do we cultivate the leadership mindset. We'll move on to talking about how do we redefine one job, and how do we network across and out. How do we be more playful with ourselves? And how do we manage the stepping up process? These are the few things which I will be pondering to going forward. First, the right mindset. When you think that you are a leader, the mindset shifts that happen is you start taking ownership of the task you have been assigned. You become more proactive. You develop an attitude to learn and thrive. The extra miles that you travel is what makes you extra from the ordinary, and that's what makes you extraordinary. How do you refine one's job, redefine one's job? We all are human centric. You agree or do not. Even technology, the fact that its dynamics keeps changing is because it is very much humane in nature. And how do we bridge those gaps when there is so much diversity and groups across all around the globe is what takes you a level ahead from others who don't. When you envision your new possibilities, engage people in the change process, and then you yourself embody this change, is when you successfully redefine the job that you have been assigned to. Another human factor is networking. Empathy will only cultivate when you understand people in and out, and understand the fact that we are more than our job. We are not just our job. There's more to every human being than their qualification, their job, and everything. And how do we do that? Or how do we enhance or rebuild our strategic network from the periphery of our current network outward as a step of increasing outside on ourselves? Develop a expertise which is outside your job and help people see through that. Then you help people to identify their strengths rather than forcing them to work on their weakness, is when you become a true leader, an empath who knows to bring out the best in everybody. And that is what makes you a bigger empath. When you learn eliciting inputs and perspectives of peers from different functional or support groups, this is again when empathy takes the lion's share of your character. And this is when people believe that, yes, you are here for the greatest good of them. Stressing somebody doesn't bring out the best in them. When you allow somebody to explore and be more playful with themselves is when you come out as a brilliant leader, a person we all want to remember. Because, as wisely put by Mark Zuckerberg, the greatest successes come from having the freedom to fail. When you allow people who work for you or you work for to have the ability to explore and identify the best possible solution, the independence when you give it to them is when you come out as a good leader and as a leader who people look up to. And how do we manage the stepping up process? Stepping up to play a bigger leadership role is not an event. It's a process that takes time before it pays. We have to understand that. It is a transition built from small changes. The transition period is rarely linear. Difficulties, complications will inevitably rise and often follow a predictable sequence of 5 stages: disconfirmation, simple addition, complication, course correction, and internalization. And that's okay. That's again human. But to help people understand and realize that whatever they're put through is for the greatest good of everybody is what makes you a brilliant leader. And how do we cultivate those traits? There are ways and tools. First, we lead with integrity. Integrity means gaining trust. When people know that you genuinely care and they will grow around you, is when your empathy works and takes you miles. Mindset. When a habit of awareness, risk awareness, and controlling the controllables is imbibed into the people who work for you. And this will help them to cultivate the problem solving skills, and which is very much important. Interpersonal skills, as they say, the number one skills that takes you higher up in the ladder is your interpersonal skills, because you know what you want and you know how to get what you want, because you know how to communicate properly. This will only happen when people can connect to you. Empathy has a lot to do with connection. When we can believe that you are here for helping us and making us thrive, is exactly when people will look up to a leader and know that they are here to game up and help them game up. Training. Like they say, change is the only constant. And as wisely put by Charles Darwin, it is not the strongest of the species that survive and nor the most intelligent. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change. So, training your mind to change as per as the circumstances is again another necessary life skill. And when you teach other this culture, imbibe in them this culture, and help them understand that it's okay to not know everything and it's okay to not be perfect. It's when you lead with empathy, and empathy takes this miles. Action oriented, you do not only say but also act, and you design a way and then execute. This is another way of leading and another trait of leading. You have to be bold, because you have to lead from front as a leader, because people have a lot of reliability on you. So staying strong, staying bold, and having the in-depth knowledge of whatever you are asking people to pursue is something that differentiate a leader. Happy hormones are for the win. I started my journey, and very early on I understood one thing in life, that anything is possible with the correct mindset. You don't have to be the best or the most intelligent person in the room, but you have to be a resilient person who is okay to fail, but then get up stronger. And you don't have to do different things to be a winner. Winners don't do different things, they do things differently. You have to be wise and then think, is this going to serve my purpose? As simple as it. Will this solve the problem of the people around? Because no matter whatever you do, we all deserve to be happy. We all deserve to be sleeping peacefully. If it doesn't serve that purpose, any work is not worth it. And sometimes in life, as a leader, you have to be unkind to be kind, because challenging your peers to game up is also another life skill, necessary leadership skill as well. Because leadership ultimately isn't a popularity contest, it is the stress that makes us perform. But to what extent? Stress is the price we pay to be the thoroughbred in life. But to develop people to be able to take that stress in the right light is something what differentiates a good leader from a dictator. Because at the end of the day, we all are here to, to be happy. Our work should help us be content and sleep peacefully, because the longer you live, the more you will be able to work. Your immune system has to be good. And stress is a royal waste of time. So you have to be very calm and composed even while taking high stake communication situation. And the more higher you climb the career ladder, more high stake communication situations are going to be there. You have to deal with it and be prepared, but in a good way. And also, we got to remember that there are things which are constant when it comes to career. Those are the three people skills that we have, the three skills, one of which is people skill. Because if I can connect with any human and help them believe that they matter, they are important, they will work more than what is expected from them, because they will feel appreciated. Persuasion skills. If one can persuade any person to believe anything, there's nothing like it. There's another life skills which takes you miles. Prioritizing skills. Now, this is a very important leadership trait, and I believe a very important life trait also, because you decide where you have to invest your energy in. And everybody has to have happy energy, because we are talking about mental well-being. And then we also have to thrive at the same time. Ultimately, whatever work we do has to be done for the greatest good of mankind, has to contribute not just to ourselves, our people, because as Dalai Lama says, it's very mean to think only of yourself, your country, your state. At the end of the day, we all deserve to think and work for making the world a greater place, a better place to be. As the Sanskrit slogan goes, Vasudevai Kutumbakam, which means the world is one big family. We all stay in positive light, giving back good energy to everybody so that everybody can find opportunities to thrive, because there is enough for everybody. All we have to do is believe. And sometimes that will only happen when we learn to accept the fact that it's okay to go wrong sometimes. It's okay normalizing taking breaks from time to time, because it's very important. Even when you work out in a week, it is asked to work out for 3 to 4 days in a week and then take a good rest for the muscles for another couple of days to bounce back again with full energy. So, normalizing taking breaks, normalizing practicing gratitude is another attribute that will help people lead with empathy. Why? Because when you're full of yourself, you will never have any insecurity in the world. It's okay to be competitive. It's okay to want the best for yourself as long as you're not harming anybody else. But at the same time, it's very important to be full of yourself, because you can never pour from an empty cup. And to be full of yourself, you have to be bereft of any insecurity that surfaces your mind, and that is possible. A good leader is not the one who scares people. A good leader is somebody who makes everybody believe that they belong. And that is something which takes somebody a long way, because those are the bosses we want to remember, who have made significant change to our being and who have helped us realize our potentialities. And those are the leaders who are immortal in history, who have thought for the people because they believe that everybody deserved kindness and goodness. So, this is what my 2 cents are. Please practice mindfulness. Every human being is a leader, with or without the designation, because at the end of the day, you lead your own life, your children, your parents who are getting older. In your organization also, you lead a lot of initiative, a lot of projects. Those are yours. When you take ownership of those things, you are a leader by design. And it's very important to lead by design and not by default. It's very important to do the right thing even if nobody is watching. Be creative, forgive yourself. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be wrong in your choices, but it's not okay to not let go. Please forgive yourself first and others next, because with empathy, you can help people realize their infinite potential, and that will only happen when they learn to let go things which did not contribute to their greater good. And that's fine. Let's all be human first. Let's all create a world where every space smiles unconditionally and infinitely. And let's create a world which loves one another, because that is what we are all born for, loving one another, loving what we do. And let's go miles without fear. That was my time. Thank you for listening to me. Let's all be a leader, a great leader with empathy and smile often. So, this was about my uh, 2 cents about leadership. And you can connect to me over social media in the following handles. This is my LinkedIn link, and Euphoric Bint is my Twitter link. So you can catch me there and we can discuss if you want to discuss anything about leading with empathy, not burning out, because that is never a good idea. There is life outside your job also, which you should embrace. And if you embrace that nicely, it's when you go a long way, because balance is important. So, have a nice rest of the day. Thank you for listening to me. This was my time, Bishakha Jain, all the way from India. Namaste.
Hello, I'm Genea Barnes, and I am a career transition coach. I help people attract careers that they love. Now, there have been countless studies that people are more depressed and anxious when they're unemployed. And of course, that makes sense. It also makes sense that people might get depressed and anxious when you don't like your job. Maybe your boss is making your life miserable, or your coworkers are also connected, but you feel left out. Maybe you started a business that you loved, but now you're overwhelmed with the menial tasks. There are so many reasons somebody might be unhappy in their job. And let's face it, we really only get four major apples in our life. Sleep, right? That takes a quarter to a third of our life. Running errands, taking care of necessities, eating, driving to and from work, another quarter. Leisure time, if we're lucky, we get a quarter of our life for leisure time. And then, of course, there's work. That's four apples. Now, if one of them is rotten, it's probably going to affect the others. And it's important that we pay attention to what is going on with our apples so that it doesn't affect our overall mental health. We can do something about it before then. Now, of course, it is more important than ever to be aware of what is going on with your mental health. We are diving deeper and deeper into the metaverse every year, and this is amazing. There are so many wonderful possibilities, possibilities and conveniences and opportunities, lots of ways to connect that we weren't able to connect before. But it's also sometimes easier to disconnect when we're so connected through the virtual world. Now, and when this happens, we might not notice some of those things that are affecting our mental health. And as our metaverse expands, it's going to require that each one of us take a greater responsibility and awareness for our own mental well-being. And this, of course, will positively affect everybody and everything around us. Now, of course, we're diving deep into the virtual world for work and everything else, right? More and more people are working remotely. It also seems like more and more people are struggling with their mental health. And we're lucky because now it's an acceptable topic of conversation. It wasn't always this way. And what's great about this is that because we're accepting that there is a problem, it is human nature to work to find a solution to solve the problem, which is awesome. And of course, the last couple of years, we have shaken everything up. Lots of people's jobs were affected, right? Some people were forced into unemployment. Some people went remote. Others realized just how much they disliked their jobs. That's what this great resignation is a telltale sign of. And the metaverse, of course, has allowed us to see what is possible. There is so much more possibility. But many people have switched jobs and they don't like their job anymore, or they're quit their job and they're unemployed. Whatever it might be, it is becoming more and more important across the board to maintain your mental well-being. And so we must become aware if one of our apples is off. And it's really easy to know if our job is not great. It's real easy to know that. But we want to notice if it's starting to affect the other apples, because this is important. We know then that it's spreading, and we've got to do something about it before it affects our overall mental health. So I'm going to run through some stuff of how you might know that the rotten job that might be the rotten apple that might be your job is seeping into the other apples in your life. Now, sleeping more or sleeping less. Sleeping more might be a symptom of depression. It can also show up as not wanting to face the day, not wanting to have to think about what you've got to do, or a lack of motivation. Sleeping less is often a sign of anxiety. And you don't have to think of it as anxiety. That's a big word for a lot of people. But the symptoms are that your brain is spinning about what you should or should not have done. Maybe you're waking up and you can't get back to sleep. You're worrying about what you did wrong or what other people might think. Maybe you feel like you have to be perfect all of the time. What about your free time? What about that apple? Are you using it to the fullest? Are you actually enjoying it? Or do you need it to completely recover from your work week? Are you spending time with your friends or people you love? Are you avoiding them? It's easy to do if you can just send them a text message. Oh, yeah, I'm connecting. But really, are you connecting? Are your relationships suffering? And then, of course, the everyday tasks, right? That apple, are those things getting done, or are they piling up? Now, all of these are signs that your mental well-being might be affected if your current job status feels less than ideal. Now, again, your current job status that's less than ideal could be that you don't like your job. Maybe you hit a glass ceiling. Maybe you lost the love for your business. Maybe you're just unemployed. Now, remember earlier, though, when I said it is human nature to work to find solutions. And it is, and our brain is happiest when it has a problem to solve. So the question then becomes, what kind of problems do you want to give your brain to chew on? To be happy, you must have a purpose. And your purpose is going to be your own big personal problem to solve. It's going to be the drive, the reason you get up in the morning. Some people, their purpose is to pay the bills, provide for their family, get recognition, save for retirement. But there are pitfalls with these, as you will soon see. They are potentials to lead to mental health hiccups. So for your purpose to have a positive impact on your mental health, it needs to have 4 things. Number 1, your purpose must be self-motivated. Let me say that again. Your purpose must be self-motivated and important to you. It can't be important to somebody else, not your boss, not your parents, not your spouse. Think about the person that always wanted to make their parents happy. They became a doctor or a lawyer, but they really don't like that job. It's not what is important to them. Maybe a man was driven to provide for their family, but once their kids are gone and through college and maybe their marriage dissolves, then they don't have a reason to keep on going. Now, your purpose, you will want to tie it to your most important value. A value is a non-tangible thing that's important to you, like freedom or connection or joy or love, kindness. Okay, I'll stop. I could go on. Many people, they're not aware of what their values are. Not truly. They haven't taken the time to define them. And they're definitely not aware of which one is the most important one to them. Now think about that person that got laid off after 20 years. They may not know what's important to them. And now they're so scared they're going to end up in a job that they don't like. They could potentially become paralyzed and frustrated, and this could affect their mental health. Richard Branson, his purpose is to have fun on his journey and learn from his mistakes. You can tell his values are the values that are very important to him are fun and learning. Okay, so the number 2 thing you must have is your purpose must be impossible to complete. It must be bigger than you. your family, your company, your community, right? If you lose any of those things, you must have a reason to pick up and start again. When your purpose disappears, your motivation for getting out of bed disappears. And that can potentially lead to mental health issues, right? Somebody had the purpose of saving for retirement and now they can relax, but perhaps they're bored. Now they're depressed. Their mom raised their kids and they end up with empty nest syndrome. Maybe somebody hates their job because their purpose was to finish college and get a good job, and now they don't have anything that they're working towards. A lawyer was working towards making partner, and when they got there, they lost all motivation. Now, of course, you can have goals. Making partner is great, but they are what you do to fulfill your purpose. Walt Disney, his purpose was to make people happy. It's an impossible task. You cannot make every single person in the world happy. It's impossible. But he fulfilled his purpose by completing goals of making and creating and producing films. Okay, the number 3 thing, your purpose must be something that can be done anywhere under any circumstances, right? It must be able to be done in the metaverse or outside of the metaverse. It must be able to be done if you're unemployed, if you've already completed all of your major life goals. It also must be simple enough that it can be done anywhere. It must be broad enough that it will never be outdated. Now, a t-shirt business, if that was the purpose to sell t-shirts, if that was the person's purpose, they can't do that in jail. They can't do that while they're hiking through nature. But if their purpose was to bring laughter, they could sell funny t-shirts. They could tell jokes, be witty. They could think funny things. And they would likely be most happy at work if they could bring laughter on a regular basis. Now, if somebody's purpose was to teach Fortran to prospective engineers, it's outdated technology programming by decades. Now, outdated. But if their purpose was to teach, they could do this anywhere. Oprah Winfrey's purpose is to be a teacher. She does this through books, television. Maybe that is the new television in the metaverse. Okay, well, she could also do this, of course, through conversation. There are always going to be ways to teach. Now, your purpose number 4 must be positively oriented. You want to give your brain a positive image to focus on. This is not about what you want to avoid. Okay, so if you think that your purpose is to end child hunger, when I say end child hunger, your mind pictures a hungry child. Now, if I tell you that my purpose is that every child is fed, your mind just pictured a child that is fed. You must give your mind a positive image to work towards. If your purpose is to be adored, maybe it's really because you want to avoid being rejected, ignored, or disliked. Now, maybe you want to be adored because you want to use that status to end child hunger, right? The being adored is the method that you use, the tool to getting there, but the purpose is that every child is fed, right? Again, positive. Now, a person that maybe they never wanted to have to depend on anybody, independence, so that they never had to depend on anybody was their purpose. Maybe they worked tirelessly and they never allowed anybody to help, and then they end up all alone and burnt out, and obviously that could affect your mental health. Now, my purpose, my number 1 value is expansion and growth. It is my belief that if people are motivated and driven by expansive emotions, expansive purpose, and expansive creativity, we will create a better world. My purpose, in one sentence, is to embody and assist expansion. Number 1, this is self-motivated and very important to me. Number 2, it is an impossible task to complete. I will always be able to expand myself more and assist others in learning and growing and having more joy. And there is no possible end date of completion. Number 3, I can do this no matter where I am. I can do it in the metaverse. I can do it sitting on a park bench. I can think expansive thoughts. I can give a smile to somebody. I can teach them, etc., etc. And of course, number 4, this is positively oriented. And because I have this purpose, I will always have a reason to get out of bed. I will always have a problem to solve that feels good to solve. When your purpose, AKA that big problem that you're trying to solve in your life, fills these 4 criteria, your mind is always focused towards something positive. You will always have motivation and the ability to fulfill that purpose. You will always leave your brain with a good problem to solve. Remember, a brain with a problem means you're happy. Brains want a problem. You must have a problem to solve to be happy, but it's got to be a good problem. A good problem will lend positively to your mental well-being. Now, of course, how do you figure out your purpose if you have not yet had that aha moment? Maybe you'll have it tonight while you sleep. So here are some clues, some things that you can use to help you determine and choose your purpose, right? Determine your values, which is the most important to you, because your purpose is about what is important to you. Think about what those magic moments are in your life where it feels like something bigger than you is just moving through you. Like, is it love or joy, or I don't know what it is for you. For me, some of my magic moments was when I helped somebody stand up to a bully and showed them that there was another possibility, right? Expanded their possibilities. Or when I help people have aha moments. Hopefully you've had one here today. Now, maybe you know what drives you and it doesn't fill those 4 criteria. So you're going to want to chunk up and think bigger. You're going to ask yourself questions like, what is this an example of? Or what is the purpose of doing this? So maybe your number 1 value is family, and you're driven to take care of your family. And this, you could ask yourself the question, what is this an example of? Now, it's an example of being kind, of making your family happy. So maybe your purpose is having people know kindness or bringing joy to others. You can ask yourself the question, what is the purpose of doing this? And maybe that's to provide safety and security, or to teach your children responsibility. So maybe your purpose is to make children feel safe, or to be a role model. Now, choosing a purpose that is important to you and possible to complete can be done anywhere and is positively oriented, will support your mental health. It will also help you choose the job that is right for you. It will help you choose and know the actions and tasks that will create the most joy for you. It will give you guidelines on how to spend your time inside and outside of the metaverse, and in a way that will maintain your mental well-being. I want to thank you all for allowing me to contribute to you today. It's a tongue twister if you try to say it 3 times fast. If you have questions or comments, please reach out to me. You can reach out via my website or social media. Thank you again, and I will see you out there in the metaverse. Bye-bye.
Hello and good day, good evening, good everything. I am Nadiya Aleem, life coach, mentor, and as I would like to say, problem-solving specialist. So I'm here today with GatherVerse at this summit, and I want to talk about your mental wellness. And as a way of conveying this, I will tell a story. But before I get into the story, let me ask a couple of questions. How many of you have found yourself in a position to where you've got all of this mental chatter, this talk where you're undermining yourself? Your mind is playing games on you and is telling you things that you're not good enough, you don't know what you're doing, how dare I attempt to do this? What kind of experience do I have in order to convey this information? I know it happens to me. It's like, I won't say it's a daily battle, but in the beginning, it definitely was a challenge. And how about another question? How many of you have found yourself in a mental fog? In addition to having all of this chatter in your mind, you also have a fog on top of that where you are in this dream state, or possibly what I would like to call, for my own personal experience that I'm going to convey in a minute, nightmare, where you're just watching yourself going through the motions and you're observing yourself. It kind of gives new meaning to being beside yourself. And you're watching and observing and you just want to know, what in the world is going on? What are you doing? I've been there. It's like, if you've been there, you can comment there in the chat box. But I think we've all been there. And how about this one? Let's go for a trifecta. How many of you had that moment in your life where you just wake up? It's like you wake up and you look around and you say, where have I been? What's been going on? And what's been happening in my life? Yeah, it happened to me. And so as I start to talk about this story, it was rather devastating what sent me along my path and my journey of wellness and getting back in the saddle, so to speak. So my story begins with the passing of my mother. And it was a shock. It was unexpected. She had just come home from the Gambia. She was there for about 5 weeks. And when she returned home, she was very weak. And so when I found out she was in the hospital, I called her, and because my family does not live in California, they're in Texas. And I called and I talked to her, and we had a wonderful conversation. She was telling me a few of the stories, things that she encountered while she was in the Gambia. And I said to her, I said, I'm going to be home in about a month or two. It's like I just started a new job and I wanted to, make sure that I had things, in order, before I went on a vacation. And so she gave me this eerie kind of silence as if she knew what was going on. So fast forward a couple of hours and a few phone calls later, and unfortunately, she did not make it. And I remember everything after that was in slow motion. And I was kind of underwater, kind of had that feeling. And I remember my father saying to me, you've got to be strong. I need you to do certain things. So he gave me my directives. I took my assignment and I proceeded to do my duty as a daughter. More specifically, as a daughter to a Muslim woman. So, in Dallas, going through the whole process, it was very humbling, to be a part of preparing your mother for burial. And through that whole time, I kept saying to myself, honor your mother, keep it together, do the task that needs to be done, and make sure that she is properly sent off. Very humbling. And so that part of my journey begins the fog, the nightmare, the going through the motions. And I thought I was doing pretty well. I thought I was doing a pretty good job. I mean, the only time that I would allow myself to cry was if I was in the car or by myself in my house. But other than that, I presented myself to the outside world. I managed my job. I managed my home. I was raising my daughters. And then one day, it took 7 years. I woke up. I looked around and I was like, what in the world is going on here? Who is this person and what life is this here that I'm living? I had slipped into clearly depression. And I found myself in a place where I had to start making choices. Now, I want to say at this point that if you are suffering from any type of mental illness, depression, anxiety, any type of psychosis, anything of that nature, please seek professional assistance. Your mental health and well-being is really so important. And there are some things that changing habits and self-care is not enough. And so please, I'm going to say that here. Get the assistance that you need. Now, in my particular case, I sought out a way of developing my tribe because I remember there were days when I was just observing my life in this nightmare dream state and just kind of thinking to myself, where's my tribe? Where are they? So that was one of the first things I started to do. I started to reach out to people and gathering positive people around me. Now, for my own personal development, I began to practice, and I do mean practice, meditation, prayer, positive self-talk. I sought out a mentor, and that was one of the things that absolutely made the difference. Because my mentor was able to see things that I was not. He gave me a perspective, and he continues to. It's like I highly recommend anyone that is embarking upon a business or just, want to have a better perspective on your own life to, seek out a life coach. It's really very helpful, for giving you out that motivation, for someone seeing, your efforts and pointing them out to you and celebrating. And that's something that's so important along your path of personal development, is celebrating your victories, celebrating the little wins. When you are in a depressive state, sometimes just rolling out of the bed and putting on some clothes is a win. It seems small, but celebrate that. Those little victories that we just kind of like put to the wayside because we're waiting for that big thing to celebrate. We're waiting for the destination. It's like, but the celebration is the journey. So every part of being in that journey, small wins, medium-sized wins, large wins, they all deserve a celebration. We've got to get that brain saying, hey, I like the way that feels. Let's do some more of that. It's really important. So going back to what I was saying as far as my personal journey, as you start to move forth with waking up and recognizing that you need to make a change, your personal development is extremely important. It is your routine. It is your habit. It's what gives you that motivation for yourself in order to go from moment to moment, hour to hour, day to day, towards your goals. The second thing about moving through from your awakening is learning skills. It doesn't really matter what you do in your life. Learning skills, practicing skills, learning them from someone who understands, who has been through things, it's very important because they will show you and talk to you in a way so that you understand the skills that you need in order to, let's just say, for example, interview. If you have a business, gaining clients. All of this folds into your personal development and your practice. So your practice will then become, your choice. For me, it was meditation, taking walks, listening to the birds, connecting and grounding myself in nature and having an appreciation for it. So as I wrap up my little story here, it's like I want to make sure that everyone understands that we in this lifetime, we have choices. And taking care of yourself, your mental state, your health and well-being is a choiceless choice, because each and every day that you choose you, you're winning. It's a choiceless choice to choose you. Celebrate your wins. Find your tribe. And you will see that your dreams will become a reality. Thank you so much for having me be a part of this summit through GatherVerse. It's been an absolute pleasure. Now you all have a wonderful, wonderful day.
What if you felt like your avatar in the virtual world was more your identity than how you were in the physical world? And what if in the virtual world you had a safe space to express yourself and that actually saved your life? Today, I'm speaking to you about representation in the metaverse, specifically that of transgender people. And you can also consider this talk sort of my coming out as a transgender person who's also an entrepreneur, a futurist, and someone who's developing the metaverse. I'm going to discuss why transgender representation is so important and how it's been squashed time and time again throughout history. We're living through that right now. And I'm going to offer 10 tips that you can use in your metaverse to be able to create a safer space for transgender people. Hello, my name is Ethan Bach, and I'm the CEO and founder of Alt Ethos Experiential Design Studio, where we deliver engaging, immersive experiences in the metaverse, virtual worlds, hybrid, and in person. And we create unexpected joy that creates community and engaging, interactive storytelling. So why now? I really haven't talked that much about being transgender in the 8 years that I've been an entrepreneur. And I'll talk about why later, but specifically, why am I coming out now? Now, in the past year, there have been over 80 anti-trans bills in the United States. Trans people are being targeted again by the conservatives at a higher rate than any other group in history. Trans people are over 4 times more likely than cisgender people to be victims of violent crimes. 52% of all transgender and non-binary youth in the US has seriously contemplated suicide in 2020. That's 52%. And women of color who are transgender are one of the highest homicide rates. Homicide, people are killing them at a larger rate than any other group. 375 were killed, transgender people were killed in 2021. So, and here we are saying that we're going to build this new world. And I don't hear anyone talking about transgender representation. So, I mean, and also, I actually don't know anyone who's also a transgender entrepreneur. And I had to decide, if nobody's going to do it, then I need to do it. So I'm going to stick my neck out here and I'm going to represent transgender people and speak up for what is needed. So first, let me explain, transgender is an umbrella term. So that can include trans men, trans women, non-binary, gender fluid. It can include a lot of different representations of gender. So when we're talking about transgender, it's a wide spectrum of people. Now, when I transitioned over 20 years ago, there was very little, if any, representation that was positive in the media of transgender people. We had Maury Povich, where trans women would be on there like ripping their hair out and yelling at each other, if you remember Maury Povich. But there wasn't anything. There was this one show that I saw that I was so excited to see because there was some sort of trans representation of trans men. And it was on the special TV show of Wonders of the World or something like that. And they showed the transgender man right after they showed the woman who didn't eat food. She just lived off of air. So that's kind of what it's been represented in the media, is that there's this sort of mystery fantasy. It's not real, but I'm here to tell you for sure we're real. So luckily for me, when I was coming out as transgender, I lived in Olympia, Washington, which is probably one of the most liberal towns on the planet. There were people who were definitely pushing the envelope there. But my community was still on message boards a lot of the time. And this is where I really got to talk through things. I got to find resources. I got to find community. So message boards and being online has always been a safe place for people to go, as long as you have a safe place to be where no one's going to harass you. That message board and places like this. So when we talk about the metaverse, we're going to talk about places like this. How do you create that? It's going to save lives. Around that same time, I also found my voice through digital media. I started doing media production. I was doing experimental media, but I was able to speak about my experience through that medium. And lo and behold, years later, I ended up at one of the top 10 programs in the United States and got my MFA in electronic arts from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. That's where I learned to do interactive design using sensors, programming, and eventually started my business. By the time I transitioned into my role as full-time representing as male, I really needed a break. I took a break from really talking about it. I mean, I had been harassed. I had inappropriate questions constantly and tons of misunderstandings. There was even this time when I was at the mall. It seemed like everything always happened at the mall when I was pre-transition, and someone threatened me, and I stood up for myself, and we almost had an altercation. And that was just how it was, me walking around in that body, in that persona. So luckily for me, I don't have to do that anymore. And I kind of have a choice as to whether or not I let people know, which total privilege, I get it. But it was nice to be able to have that break. And still, it's nice to have that break. I continue to make my digital art. My digital art actually did have some pieces of it that told my story and talked about my transgender experience, but I really worked on broadening what my art was about and how it impacted people on different levels. So it was the summer of 2007, and I'd just seen this show on Oprah, and Oprah finally talked to a transgender person, and Oprah said, "This is okay. This is normal." And I was about to head out on a road trip. I was doing some filming for my final project, my thesis project, and I hit the road with my pickup truck and my motorcycle in the back of my pickup truck. And I drove all the way from New York down the East Coast, across the South, and up the West and across the top. And at one point, I ended up in Las Vegas, visiting a friend from high school. This friend had really gotten into hanging out with bikers, serious bikers who slept in the ditch on road trips when they were tired. So here I am, I'm in Las Vegas, hot as heck, riding motorcycles with these guys. And the next day we get up and nobody else is up, just us three guys. And so we decided to go to the flea market. We climb into the 1970s Ford pickup, long bench seat. You can imagine this. I'm in the middle. And I had promised myself when I saw that story about Oprah that no matter what during this road trip, that if someone, or for the rest of my life, really, I've used this, but if someone was going to ask me something that was relevant to me talking about being transgender, that I would do it. Because if Oprah says it's okay, everyone else has to catch up. So here I am, I'm in this pickup truck going to the flea market. I don't know where we're going. And I'm in the middle between these two guys. They got tattoos all over. They got unwashed hair. I don't know these guys. And the one guy asked me, "So what are you taking your road trip for?" I said, "Well, I'm doing a documentary and I'm filming." "Oh, what's your documentary about?" I said, "About transgender people and about them being people and not just about, 101 needing to exist. Like, actually, what do they do with their lives?" And he said, "Well, that's great. Why did you pick that topic?" And I took a deep breath and I said, "Because I'm transgender." And they both just sort of stopped and looked at me. And the one guy, the scariest guy, he looked at me and he said, "I can't imagine you as a woman." And I just said, "Imagine how that felt for me." And then we didn't talk about it. And later on, we went back to the house and we talked to my friends and all that, but we never talked about it. And the next day, my friend came to me and she said, you know what? He came up to me and told me what you said about that you can't imagine, you couldn't imagine yourself as a woman either. And that's why you're transgender. And that's why you transitioned. And she said, he just looked at her and said, I get it. He got it from that, which was just quite amazing. I love those stories. These are the opportunities and the safety that we want to create for everyone. Did I really feel safe in that position? No, but I had confidence that it was okay because Oprah said it was okay. So then I went on and I worked as a researcher and a professor in digital domes at the Institute of American Indian Arts. Now, this is a 4-year college geared towards Native American students. And I found myself in the middle of a lot of planetarium guys, because a lot of digital domes are still today, like still in the science centers. And I'd end up at these conferences with over 50 white guys. And that was really it. And after a couple of years, I'd find myself on stage sharing our research, talking about the students' work. And I just started calling it out. I'd look across the audience and I'd say, let's see here, like there's so many white guys in this audience. This is a problem. You have to be able to share this storytelling mechanism of the digital dome with everybody. So today I brought some Native American students, I brought some queer people, I brought different people to this talk, to this conference, because we have to have diversity. So in that way, I consider myself like sort of undercover, right? Like I can be in white male spaces readily without anyone even thinking twice about it. And so, but once I'm comfortable in that space and I feel like there's not a threat, then I will start challenging that and disrupting it. So here I am disrupting it now, because really when I came to Denver 8 years ago and I became an entrepreneur, I did not talk about being transgender. That was one of the most white male spaces, almost like the planetariums. And it didn't feel safe for me to be able to talk about it. It felt like if I talked about it, that I would be jeopardizing the success of my company. And there's no way in heck I was going to do that, because my company was and still is so important. But again, why now? My business is flourishing. I feel really confident. And again, no one else is talking about it. So I'm stepping in to be that person. And I've been able to create a company that has reached so many people by creating unique engagements for cities and libraries and brands in the metaverse, creating digital worlds and doing both permanent and temporary installations. So my reach beyond my identity has been much bigger and much wider, and has created joy for people in ways I couldn't have imagined previously. And I'm so glad to be here at this juncture of digital media and see it explode and see the metaverse develop and to be a part of it. So I'm going to share with you 10 things that you can do to help transgender people feel safe in the metaverse. And don't worry about writing this down. You can go to our website at altethos.com and you can find this on our blog. But let me go through this list. Number 1, respect trans people as equal citizens with equal rights. Craft a transgender, inclusive, non-discriminatory policy. This should be in the document everyone signs to get into the world. Train all of your staff to know how to appropriately handle any harassment of transgender person and anyone really. Like hire a diversity trainer that helps your staff to be able to handle everyone properly. Personal boundaries, create a safe area around the avatars. Let that be known. Like Meta just did this in February. I was so impressed. They created something called personal boundary, and it's a 4-foot buffer around your avatar that actually creates safe space. I've seen so much harassment of women, especially in this space. And now you have this boundary where people can't just come up and start inappropriately touching your avatar. The fourth thing, categorize your clothing options, not by male, female, but masculine, feminine, and what about gender neutral? That'll help a lot. These little things are really helpful. Number 5, empower transgender people to have ownership in the metaverse. Now, if you're teaching a workshop or working with different communities to teach them how to do 3D design, how to work in the metaverse, include a queer and or transgender only workshop. Make people feel safe. Number 6, add safe space posters and banners in public spaces, reminding people that you have zero tolerance and that everyone is welcome in the metaverse. Number 7, create transgender avatars. What does that mean? So avatars that look more gender neutral, avatars that have both types of features, feminine and masculine, allow people to be able to mix and match their clothing and not be able to just pick by gender. Same with objects. 8, allow people to display their preferred pronouns. We do this in other public spaces like LinkedIn. I see it all the time. And, some people prefer they as a pronoun. And if that's true, in order to be respectful, they should be able to tell other people non-verbally that that's how they like to be addressed. Number 9, create queer and transgender safe spaces for hanging out. Like in general, like that's why they are gay bars, that's why there's different places for people to hang out, coffee shops that that are queer owned, that kind of thing. Number 10 is create a transgender education center where anyone can be informed if they're curious about what it is to be transgender. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and only 20% of people actually know they know a transgender person. So creating that to be able to offer that, you can partner with a local nonprofit and give your services for them to be able to outline what they'd like to see in that space. Again, if you didn't get the list, go ahead and go to altethos, ALTETHOS.com, hit our blog. We'll put this list there for you. And I appreciate you listening today. And my name is Ethan Bach, and thank you so much.
Such a pleasure to be here. First, I want to thank Christopher Lafayette, the founder of GatherVerse, for organizing this event and giving me the opportunity to share some tips and thoughts on how to stay mentally healthy in the metaverse. So what is mental health? It includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make healthy choices. Optimal mental health is essential at every stage of life, from childhood to adolescence, and adulthood, obviously. Though people often use the term interchangeably, poor mental health and mental illness, even though those are different subjects. A person can experience poor mental health, but not be diagnosed with mental illness. Mental illness takes place when a person presents a set of symptoms that affect their emotions, social patterns, brain patterns, and their daily functioning. Even though mental health starts in the mind, it goes hand in hand with physical health. Optimal health encompasses physical, mental, and social well-being. It's not merely the absence of disease, because there is no health without mental health. Multiple associations between mental health and chronic physical conditions significantly impact people's quality of life. It places a high demand on healthcare and other publicly funded services, leading to costly societal consequences. The difference between physical and mental health is not as pronounced as you may think. Researchers have been asking this complex question: how do mental and physical health interact? The answer is complicated, but we do know that mental illness impacts physical health directly and indirectly. And good mental health can positively affect your physical health, and poor mental health can negatively affect your physical health. So your mental health plays a massive role in your general well-being. Maintaining a healthy mental state can even prevent severe health conditions. For instance, studies have found that positive psychological well-being can reduce the risks of heart attacks and strokes. On the other hand, poor mental health can lead to poor physical health, and poor mental health can raise your risks of chronic disease like diabetes, asthma, cancer, cardiovascular disease, and arthritis. Mental health conditions can make dealings with chronic illness even more difficult. The mortality rate from cancer and heart disease is even higher among people who have mental health conditions. People with mental health conditions are more likely also to suffer from sleep disorders like insomnia or sleep apnea. And sleep apnea leads to breathing problems, which can cause you to wake up frequently and disrupt your body's ability to restore itself during the night. Insomnia can also disrupt your whole day and your night as well. Depression can weaken your immune system, suppressing T cells and responses to viruses and bacteria. Stress can trigger an immune response in your brain that causes inflammation, and this can trigger a whole series of chronic conditions. As you can see, it's a vicious cycle. Mental health can affect physical health, and physical health can interfere with your mental health. This is because we are multifaceted and interconnected beings. We are not just bodies or minds or isolated beings. Now, let's talk about the metaverse. So, metaverse activities range from interactivity on the internet to full-on virtual experiences. Although definitions and descriptions of the metaverse vary, one thing is certain: it involves a high level of engagement with technology. Participation in the metaverse could involve using a computer, using an app, augmented reality glasses, or a VR headset. However, it's not all fun and games and technological progress. Using technology for long periods of time can contribute to numerous mental and physical health concerns that can have a detrimental effect even on relationships. For example, sitting in front of the computer and using tech for long periods of time can cause carpal tunnel syndrome, postural problems that can cause stiffness, pain, and they can harm your musculoskeletal system. Poor blood flow to extremities can also impede proper circulation. Sitting for long periods of time is associated with increased blood pressure, increased acidity, increased blood sugar, and cholesterol levels. And also it's going to increase your body fat. Now, wearing a VR headset can also cause some problems like hearing loss, strained and dry eyes, and eyesight problems. It can give you headaches and sometimes neck and backaches. Another issue related to the over-involvement in the metaverse is the disconnection from face-to-face interactions. And this can contribute to mental health issues like anxiety, depression, body dysmorphic disorder, eating disorders, and much more. It can also cause relationship difficulties. So instead of making us feel connected and included, technology can provoke feelings of isolation and even detachment. So it's important to keep in mind that the overuse of technology can have a negative impact also in children and teenagers, since their brains, their minds, their eyes are developing. This can lead to psychological and physical issues like eye strain, difficulty comprehending, difficulty focusing, isolation, social anxiety, and body image issues. So this is why it's vital that you take a look at your routine and make positive changes to make optimal physical and mental health. So now that we looked into the dark side of over-engaging in the metaverse, now let's look at some tips that are gonna help you to stay mentally healthy. Number one, you should exercise. Being physically active not only keeps you fit, but helps manage your weight, improve your aesthetics, and also affects your brain positively. It can also strengthen your bones and joints and muscles, augmenting your ability to do everyday activities. Regular exercise also increases your mental alertness, leaving you more energetic and in a good mood. So you should aim to exercise engaging cardiovascular activities at least for 150 minutes a week. That's around 25 minutes for 6 days. It's not so much. And you also should engage in activities that use your muscles. So strength training activities at least twice a week. You should also aim to have a healthy, clean diet. Eat organic fruits and vegetables, healthy proteins and healthy fats, that they help you to stay alert and healthy. But you should also try to eliminate the regular consumption of processed foods, sugar, and vegetable oils. So you can work with an expert so you can have a customized plan according to your biometrics, your needs, and your goals. Try to eliminate or decrease the use of alcohol and drugs, since they may help you feel better in the short term, but their abuse can harm your physical and mental health significantly. You should also sleep enough, because this helps your body to rejuvenate and help you maintain your internal systems working properly. Most people generally need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. But if you don't sleep that much, you should at least have a nap during the day if you need it. Another important tip is to incorporate relaxation techniques. For instance, meditation, deep breathing, stretching, yoga, or getting a massage. That they lower your stress levels. It's also essential that you develop good mental practices. So for instance, you have to keep a positive mind rather than focus on negative thoughts. You should realize that your thoughts affect your emotions and subsequently your actions. So it's a cascade. What starts in the mind, positive or negative, trickles down to how you feel and how you act. Another important thing that you can do to help your body is to use an ergonomic chair and pay attention to your posture. Also, if you sit down for a long period of time, try standing up every couple of hours. Try stretching your neck, your shoulders. Another alternative is also to use a standing desk. And if you use a VR headset regularly, you should take it off to give your neck a rest, and also don't listen at high volumes. If you stare at the screen for a long period of time, try to take a break from your eyes and do some eye exercises. That's gonna help you. You could also use eye lubricating eye drops. Additionally, you should take a break from the metaverse and socialize with real people in real life. Even though the metaverse can help you connect with people all over the world, there is no substitution for real face-to-face connection. Real socialization can have a great impact in your life. Staying engaged with friends and family can help you to feel less stressed and can help reduce your burdens. Another thing, you should also try to eliminate isolation. Try to increase activities that help you to hang out with more people. So that's gonna help you to promote a sense of safety, and it's gonna give you a support system, which is essential in times of need, and also to ward off loneliness. By the way, did you know that hugs and physical contact not only make you feel good emotionally, but also can boost your immune system and lower stress, lower blood pressure, and even your heart rate? So get more hugs. If you are not used to socializing much, there are a couple of things that you can do to be more social. So for instance, initiate interactions with friends and family. Call them, invite them to get together, spend time with you. Also, you can just maybe make plans to exercise together or share meals or just hang out. And if your schedule is too busy to allow for this, then change your plans and open up a little slot at least once a month. You should try to introduce yourself to neighbors and other people. Say hello when somebody walks by. Also try to join groups religious groups or civic service groups, or even a hobby, or you can take a class that's interesting to you. That's a great way of meeting new people. So keep in mind though that the quality of your relationships and not the number of connections that you have is what determines the benefits that you're gonna have from socializing. It's the deeper, caring relationships that provide benefits, not just shallow, temporary relationships with people. And try to have relationships that are two ways, not just one-sided relationships, because that's gonna help you. You know, relationships should be reciprocal. That's how you make real friends. It's a give and take. So as you can see, despite all the benefits and advances that the metaverse bring, the over-engagement in the metaverse can increase your chances of developing physical, social, and mental health problems. So you need to keep your mental wellness at the forefront so you can have a more fulfilled, healthy, and happy life. Your mental wellness is in your hands. Just follow some of those tips that I share with you in order for you to care and maintain your physical and mental wellness. Again, I want to thank Christopher for having me here and giving me the ability to discuss these important issues with you. And I hope you have an amazing week. Thank you.